Hey folks, just before jumping into this episode with Barry Brinegar of RD1 Spirits, wanted to provide a little clarification in case anyone gets confused during the episode. So, when Barry and I first recorded this episode, RD1 was really more known as William Tarr or WM Tarr, and that was the brand's main whiskey product. As of September 10th, 2022, so just a couple of days ago, RD1 Bourbon and RD1 Bourbon Finished with French Oak are now available and are the main products for the brand. The Tarr line, you might still be able to find a couple of bottles either at the brand's location or at nearby stores, but they really are sunsetting that. It was always meant as a limited edition, fantastic limited edition, but a limited edition nonetheless. So, in case you're wondering why we spent some time on the brand that was going to be sunsetted, it's because it was great. It showed off the blending skill. But keep in mind that RD1 is officially now the brand's title, the name, Registered Distillery 1, and you'll be able to hear all about that mainly in the second half of this episode. There might still be a couple of bottles left, like I said, of the Tarr, and trust me, they're amazing. Look at my reviews if you have any questions. But do visit the brand center at Lexington's Distillery District, right off of Manchester, to pick up all of your RD1 spirits, RD1 merch, to taste the products, everything like that. And, who knows? You might even meet Barry himself. All right, with that clarification in mind, here's Barry Brinegar of RD1 Spirits. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Whiskey Ring Podcast. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by Barry Brinegar of both RD1 Distillery, and you might know it better as William Tarr, but RD1 is the larger brand. So Barry, welcome on.
Thank you so much, David. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to sampling some bourbon and talking about the brand. And I'm having a good time and looking forward to it.
Excellent. And yes, we should note that Barry has provided 5 samples for me to try as we go along today. So, and let's see. Well, we won't spoil anything at the moment, so we'll just jump right in. So let's start where everything does with what's the origin story.
Yeah, well, funny enough, here in Lexington, Kentucky, we love bourbon, and my path has been a little circular in bourbon. For me, I'm a native of Lexington. Actually grew up. I was a nurse in the operating room, and I found that I enjoyed talking to people better. And so I became a sales representative for Medtronic, an implantable device company, and sold also pharmaceutical formulations. But then I slowly migrated over to digital marketing. I own a digital marketing company and follow this group called the Lexington Bourbon Society. And I was on the board for a short tenure. And during that time, I just absolutely fell in love with the industry. And so it got to the point where I started meeting local influencers and business owners, and met enough people that we said, hey, we should revive a brand. And what better brand to revive than Lexington, Kentucky's first federal registered distillery that was established in 1865. And it was actually a descendant of Henry Clay that was one of the founders of that company. And they called it the Ashland Distillery after the Ashland estate. And so our history is about 60 plus years from 1865 into and including a few years into Prohibition. And then we revived the brand in January of 2020, right before COVID. And we started our company, and we bought a still, we sourced barrels. We had a product on the market on store shelves in October of 2020. So I often tell people that the brand just has willed itself to be revived.
Yeah, and that's an impressive turnaround for everything involved. But that's a step above for sure. So as you noted, first federally registered distillery. So fans of Kentucky bourbon, well, any bourbon, but Kentucky bourbon especially, are going to probably note but they're not DSP1. That's, you know who that is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who's RD? So what's the difference between RD and DSP?
And that's really our story. Our story is as you look, and DSP, Distilled Spirits Plant, was post-prohibition. It was after we came out of prohibition in 1933 that the government started re-registering distilleries. And at that point, they registered them as Distilled Spirits Plant, that DSP designation. But before that time, in 1862, as the government is undergoing a traumatic civil war, they are in need of significant revenue. And so they start registering distilleries to get tax revenues. And so the way that they did it is they divided up the region here into 7 different districts. And each district had an RD1, Registered Distillery 1, RD2, RD3, and so on down. But each different district had an RD1. So there were 7 RD1s that started out the first federal registered distilleries. And it just so happens that in Lexington, Kentucky, RD1 was the Ashland Distillery. So that was their designation. That's the way that they received tax revenues, and up to 30% of all the federal government's revenue came from distilleries.
It's always been, even though we've had, of course, whiskey rebellion and, you know, arguments against whiskey taxes and all of that, people continue to make it and people continue to buy and drink it. So, at this point, I think people are kind of used to it, but it might have been a shock to the system back then for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
there hadn't been a federal tax between 1801 or something and that time. So 60 years plus without a federal tax on spirits.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then we went through a traumatic 13 years without a tax because we didn't make it. It was illegal to manufacture alcohol during Prohibition. It wasn't illegal to drink it and consume it, but it was illegal to buy it outside of a prescription, and it was illegal to make homebrew and any kind of distilled spirits during Prohibition.
So coming out of Prohibition, this question just came to me. Of course, there are new distilleries popping up after 1933 and after Prohibition ends, but there are the 6 that kind of were allowed to keep selling during it through those exclusions. When I'm kind of surprised when the government decided to go with DSPs as opposed to RDs, that the ones already in production, already working, didn't get the 1, the 2, the 3, etc. Do you know why that was? That they just took longer to register?
Well, I think that you see a lot of bankrupt companies, a lot of bankrupt distilleries. So they when during Prohibition, you could put it in a bottle, but you couldn't manufacture it. So there was a distiller's holiday in the late 1920s that allowed the production of barrels for a short amount of time. But a lot of those companies just they couldn't make it. They were dependent upon that revenue. And so as we get through Prohibition, it's the ones who either survived because they had a permit during Prohibition, or it was the opportunist who bought the bones of the distilleries and started it anew.
It's just a question. I don't know why that just came to me, and I hadn't thought of it before, but it's worth asking. All right, shall we? Before we go forward, should we go into the first sample here?
Yeah, I think we should. So what you're going to sample here, the first 3 samples are a blend, and it's a blend of an 7-year Kentucky straight bourbon. And we've got these at different proofs. So and I can walk through the mash bill, right? We don't need to blind them, right? So the mash bill, the bourbon mash bill, is going to be 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. And then the rye mash bill is going to be 37% corn, 51% rye, and 12% malted barley. So as we're sampling the first sample here, it's at 96.4 proof. So it's the same blend, it's the same percentage. The only difference is proof. And you're a bourbon guy. You understand the importance of what proof does to the to the various grains as it's has different proof. So as I knows this, I get some very sweet notes. But I do get some character in it. 96.4 proof. I'm getting a little bit more of the rye of the bold spiciness. It's not overwhelming. But it really does compete with the sweetness from the corn in the mash bill. So both mash bills have a high percentage of corn, and the rye is an 8-year rye, so it's a very mature rye. It's going to drink much different than your younger rye mash bills. But so for me on the nose, I definitely get some of the fruit citrus. I get some orange citrus. I do get some boldness from the spice of the rye.
So some good proof on there. Like there's not a lot of proof, of course. We discussed beforehand how we're both proof hounds, but it's not 80 proof either. There's enough heft there to be interesting to especially guys like us, if I'm going to put it bluntly.
Yeah, and what I really enjoy about this is it kind of cascades. At the front of the palate, I get sweetness right off of the bat. Some people, that rye is dominant right at the first. I get a little white pepper, some black pepper. It's definitely some spice heat on that mid palate, but it finishes. I get an orange citrus on the finish. I can pick up some stone fruit, some dried cherry on the finish, and if you take a little dried cherries and eat it while you're sampling this, it really complements those fruit notes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% on pretty much every note actually. And I was trying to sip it before you said anything because power suggestion and all that, but
right.
No, it's absolutely true. I was also picking up kind of especially on the nose, a not Kentucky style cornbread, a northern sweetened cornbread on there.
Yeah, and make sure reserve some of this as we go further along into the next two tastings at the higher proof. When you go back and forth and nose them together, you really do pick up that significant difference on the proof. The rye just really opens up at this 96.4 proof, and very enjoyable. This one, you can imagine a classic cocktail, a Manhattan old fashioned. This is going to play well with it, with those rye notes, those spicy notes. We do what's called a Lexington Lemonade, and in our brand destination, we have a slushy machine, and so we make this Lexington Lemonade, and it's lemonade concentrate, a high quality orange juice, water, and our whiskey, a blend of the bourbon and rye, and it is a fan favorite. People that come in, it's very refreshing this time of year. It's very hot. Here in Kentucky, we're dealing with the humidity, and people come in just to get that slushy.
I believe it. That sounds. I mean, I love a good slush. Right now, it's hot as hell up in New York too. We're in the middle of our heat wave, and normally I'm a drink whiskey straight kind of guy. I tell people to drink however they want, drink it how you like it, drink what you like. For me, I usually drink it straight. But a slushy sounds damn good right now.
Yeah, and that sugar content, man, it really helps to absorb that alcohol really fast. So you got to be kind of careful with it. But yeah, absolutely, it's very refreshing. We'll be at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I don't know if you'll be there. I hope you will. And if so, definitely stop by our booth. But we'll have that Lexington Lemonade, and it was a fan favorite last year. Last year, the festival attendees got tickets, and so they would had so many tickets that they could get pours or cocktails from, and we had a bowl that was just filled with tickets. People were coming back, and that's really a sign of success when someone drinks your cocktail or your pour and they come back to say, you know what, I want another one.
Absolutely. So I have to admit, I won't be at this year's festival. I will be at next year's though.
Excellent.
And I think, let me see before I make a mistake here. So actually this episode is going to come out. It's planned to come out on September 7th. So it'll be right before the festival. But I'll actually be in Kentucky from August 21st through the 27th, between Louisville, Lexington, Bardstown, and 2 days in Nashville area, but in Tennessee, of course. But of course, if you'll be around, I'll sneak by for some of that lemonade for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, make sure to give me a heads up so that we can plan a time. I can host you at our brand destination, and maybe we'll take in a meal while you're down here.
Sounds great. I will connect with you offline about that.
Awesome.
Awesome. So, actually, I should also mention. So, we've been kind of going back and forth for a little while now, and you probably hit the pavement. Easy top 2 or 3 people I've seen in terms of just pounding the pavement, getting that product out there, showing up at events, holding events. And I just wanted to mention it because it's impressive to watch, and it shows a dedication to the product. I really, the only other person I could think of off the top of my head who's that just prolific about it is Alex Clark from Fort Hamilton Distilling. And he was actually in Kentucky last week, so perfect pairing. But to see someone like that who's just constantly, every day I see on Instagram you're at another event, or we just passed each other at Liquor Barn, I think, when I was down there.
We just missed each other, I think.
I what honestly confused me, and this is the God's honest truth, is that there's the end cap poster of you and the William Tarr Reserve, Manchester Reserve.
Yeah.
And in that end cap, I think you were dressed in a suit or something, and it was just enough of a different look that I swear to God, I was there with my friend Eric, and I looked over and I was like, I think that's Barry, but I'm not sure enough to go over. And you were talking to someone at the time, so I was like, I'm not sure enough to go over and be like, are you, like, it's my first time in Kentucky. I gotta tread a little carefully the first time. So
I wish you would have come up. And that poster is actually Mark Stoops of the University of Kentucky football team. He's the head coach. He's actually one of my partners, and he's a majority owner. So we especially in Lexington, we capitalize on Mark because of his popularity. He's a top 10 college football coach in the whole country. So his stock is really rising. We're very proud of him and the things that he's done at UK. But we're not a celebrity brand. We are a legitimate brand that has been revived, and we're going to come out with some interesting products. And I'll talk a little bit later about what our strategy is here coming up over the next year, the next 5 years, because we have a liquid strategy that's taken us out. We're not looking to be acquired. We're looking to build a brand, and we will be nationally distributed brand in 5 years.
I mean, that's fantastic. That's a dream for any distillery, right? Opening up in the last decade, to be nationally distributed within 5 years is, it's a dream for many.
But, well, we're real fortunate with having Republic, Rd and Dsp as our distributor. They're the number 2 distributor in the country, and it's the relationship that Mark Stoops has with Republic that allowed them to even look at us, because they don't look at craft brands like us. They they go for tried and true brands, but they looked at us and they said, we're gonna take a chance on you. And we have, like you had mentioned, we're training brand ambassadors all over the state. And our goal is to get sips to lips to folks so that they can taste our product and then buy a bottle and hopefully tell their friends about it. So that's our strategy. And my background as a nurse, I'm very used to teaching. I'm very used to educating. And so we've set up a plan and a process to bring on brand ambassadors. And so their goal is to do tastings in every market. So, Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, Kentucky, even in Western Kentucky, in Paducah, in Owensboro, and Bowling Green. We're trying to hit those major markets and do tastings and bring awareness. And I don't think you see a whole lot of brands like us that are this small that focuses on that piece of it. That focuses on bringing people in to train them. And I mean, I do the history of RD1. I do the Bourbon Steward program because I think it's important that everybody have a foundational knowledge of bourbon and whiskey, so that when they talk to a customer that comes in to do a tasting, that they have that foundational knowledge, and they can talk about intelligently about what is bourbon, what is whiskey, what's the difference between them. And I love that. I love that opportunity that we've got. And we're setting up a training program that these brand ambassadors once a month are going to jump on a call, and they're going to listen to other brand ambassadors, what's going well, what are some of the roadblocks that maybe they're hitting, and training. And so we'll continue to reinforce the training of Bourbon Steward and our new products that are coming out to market. So that's probably something that's a little bit unique to us. We're very focused on making sure that people understand the product itself and are able to intelligently talk about it.
That's so important. It's important for the brand. It's important for people who work at bars and at retail establishments as well to learn about it, so that have the brand ambassador talk to them, and have that second level of training. And not everyone does it. That does bring me to another question, though, and I'm going to pour sip number 2.
Yes,
is the 114 proof, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So same mash bill, blend of mash bills as number 1, but at 114 proof. This is the proof that's readily available on shelves. So when you were thinking about reviving this particular brand, so it makes perfect sense to go to RD1. It's from the historical aspect of it. You can see I'm holding a pen because I'm writing notes as we go along. From the historical aspect, it makes perfect sense. So when you were reviving it, of course, in 1865, bourbon, as we think about it, was not legally defined.
Right.
Whiskey wasn't even legally defined in the same way that we have now. So in reviving the brand, was there any thought to going straight bourbon versus the blend that you ended up with? What was that thought process like during the revival?
Yeah, the most important thing is that, and us bourbon aficionados, we want to see, are you staying true to the brand? Are you bringing back a specific yeast strain and a mash bill? And we absolutely want to do that. But most importantly, when we're reviving this brand, we want to make sure, and we did, to make sure that we were bringing a product to market that was very good. And so not just getting anything from a barrel and putting it in a bottle and saying, this is RD1, this is William Tarr brand. We wanted to make sure that it was a high quality product that customers are going to taste and hopefully like, and then tell their friends about it. And so that was our intention with the whiskey, with the blended whiskey. And what you see going on now in America is you're seeing a lot more blending occurring, similar to Scotch that's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. You see a lot of finishing, so giving a nod to Lincoln Henderson with Angel's Envy. They were the first ones, they had a very disruptive brand with that bottle. They also they were the first one to get through TTB, Kentucky straight bourbon finished in port wine barrels. And so finishing has, been the hottest craze right now. I mean, people are looking for a toasted oak. They're looking for, Nulu has great products out of Louisville that they do a lot of finishing. So I think that the product just has to be really good. And so what we came out with was a Kentucky straight bourbon. It was a 12-year super limited release, and is actually the 12-year is what convinced Mark Stoops to buy into the company. He loved the story, but it wasn't until he tasted that 12-year product that he was like, I'm all in. I'm in. I want to buy the company, and I want to be a part of this revived brand.
That is delicious. Getting a lot of kind of a toasted almond. I think it's almond. Definitely a toasted nut. I think almond. More pronounced cherry notes, dry, as well as some fresher ones like a Bing cherry right off the tree. The proof is not overpowering by any means. It just settles like really under the tongue and on the sides, down the salivary glands there.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't taste like 114. And in fact, on the palate, I think the 96.4 with that rye being open is hotter with that white pepper. This one is the corn dominates the flavor profile, and like you had mentioned, I get that oak from the barrel. I get some char from that barrel. I get a little macadamia nut, so I definitely get an earthy note of nut. I absolutely get a lot of it's a very thick viscous mouthfeel because it's non-chill filtered, and it definitely hangs around. That finish hangs around a little bit for you. I lovingly call this a creme brulee finish because I get the vanilla, the caramel notes, and that char really work well together in the glass.
Oh, Barry, how do you know creme brulee was my favorite dessert?
I think it's a lot of our favorite. It is absolutely my favorite.
It is, but you're right.
If you,
oh no, you're right about the finish too. It's sitting on my tongue, and just laying there, and I'm okay with it. I'm good with it.
Yeah. This is a sipping whiskey. This one, I don't know if you're a cigar smoker. This one absolutely holds up to a very robust cigar. And this one has won a double platinum medal, a single platinum, and 4 gold medals. We hit the nail on the head with this proof. This 114 really is the right proof. For those of us who like high proof. Now, not everyone's like us. I think we're probably in a 1% category. And so that's why we came quickly back and had a lower proof with the 96.4, because you just don't want to mix this. You don't want to make a cocktail out of 114 proof that's this good. For me, it just mutes it. Now, I will tell you, my wife likes a blackberry bramble, and she will only put the 114 in it because she thinks that 114 really marries well with the blackberry that's in that cocktail.
I can definitely see that, Scott. Like I said, I was getting more fresh cherry on there, so I could see a fresher, just berry note and a little bit of acidity there. I mean, so the 114 really came out before. Did it come out before the 96.4?
It did. Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good with the higher proof cocktail too, because obviously I have not tried this in a cocktail yet, but I'm a big fan of like a Booker's Old Fashioned, because
oh my goodness, yeah,
especially like 1 or 2 of those batches that I don't really like that much, but it makes a great old fashioned though, because it's got the power to hold up to some of that sweetness, and especially if you're a proof person, even in the cocktails you want a little burn in there.
You want a higher proof in your cocktail. Yeah, absolutely.
No, this was delicious, but it's delicious at the 114. But again, I mean, going back to the 96.4, even going back to it after the 114, it doesn't lose anything. It doesn't taste watered down.
Right.
That's usually the kiss of death for me, is when it starts tasting watery.
Yeah, when it starts to break, it a little bit of my heart breaks. Once you get to that point where you're starting to pick up some of the faults, and I think we're well above that. I think that you're probably going to have to go down to low 90s to really start getting it thinned and seeing some of the faults. But I think we're pretty safe with that 96.4 proof level.
No, it's right on. I usually say if it's under 95 to 100, I don't taste the proof. This one I had a little bit on there, and it's just enough. But again, mouthfeel, very solid. I'll be honest, if I had to choose, I'm going to go the 114 because that's just me.
Yeah.
But I think people who prefer a little bit lower proof, but something that's also not just going to slide down, that you're going to know and have to sip a little bit, will enjoy the 96.4 as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull something out of a hat here before we go on to the next pour. And you mentioned it a little bit, which is a lot of people like to go back and see, can we find the yeast strain that was involved? Can we analyze the blend if we find an old whiskey? And I think the podcast that I was listening to, I think it was the episode of the Bourbon Show you did. This was back in 2020, when the brand was launching, and you had mentioned you were trying to, maybe going over to Firm Solutions or sending stuff over there to try to figure out mash bills and yeast strains. Were you successful?
Yeah, so great story there. Dr. Heist, Dr. Pat, he's just a brilliant mind with Firm Solutions, and they and I know you know this, but they've got 30 proprietary yeast strains in their armamentarium. And so what he told me is that, you really can't do an electronic analysis to figure out the mash bill, to figure out the yeast strain. He said, you need to get some really good people that have great palates and noses and do an expert tasting panel. And then he said, we can come up with a yeast strain that's going to mimic that. But the key is really identifying what percentage of corn, what percentage of flavoring grain is in there, and then match that up with a yeast strain, and he can actually do petri dishes that have that yeast strain that will help us identify on the nose what that flavor profile is. And so I can tell you, in 2020, I actually had a pint bottle that's still sealed pre-prohibition. So it was barreled in 1917 and it was bottled in 1934. And really cool bottle. It has the medicinal purposes on the label, and so I still have that one in my collection. But I just about 3 or 4 months ago, have you heard of Revival in Northern Kentucky? It's in Covington, and so Brad Bonds owns that. It's a vintage bourbon shop, and they actually have other vintage spirits too. He came upon a liter bottle of Old Tarr that was bottled, and on the label it has a Lexington, Kentucky label. And so what that tells me is that in 1908, the brand moved itself from Lexington up to Whiskey Row when the Whiskey Trust bought it back from the Stolen Company. And so that bottle, that liter bottle, is from the early 1900s when Stolen Company owned the brand. And so that one is still sealed, and we're actually buying that one and bringing that into the into our museum that we're going to display at our brand destination. Now, I do believe that we will probably open one of these bottles and do exactly that, which is try to recreate that mash bill. And during the 1900s, the brand did have a bourbon mash bill and a whiskey mash bill. And so this one, we're just going to have to determine based on our expert tasting panel which mash bill we believe it is, because it doesn't have the back label, it just has the front label, and we're going to have to figure out which one that is. But super excited. We are going to do that. We are going to bring about a very special mash bill. And so what you're going to see with our brand, we're going into a transition. Right now, you can see that we have the William Tarr on our label. And within the next 4 to 8 weeks, you're going to start seeing RD1 displayed on the same bottle. And it's still going to be our tribute brand to William Tarr. It'll have William Tarr on the label. But as we move into next year, we're going to have a custom bottle, and we're going to have different releases. So we will have probably a 4-grain release. We'll probably have a bourbon, a Kentucky straight bourbon. I know some of the leadership team really wants to bring a wheated mash bill, because there's a lot of fans out there that really enjoy that. I don't want to say narrow on the flavor wheel, but the wheated fans really enjoy that for that sweet, that nutty flavor. And so I think that we probably will bring a weeded mash bill as well. And so at this point, I can see us coming out with about 4 different labels starting next year.
That's incredible. To find, let's see. So the bottle, the liter bottle was Old Tarr.
Yep.
And then the pint bottle, the medicinal bottle that you had, was that also Old Tarr?
It
Same.
was, yeah. It's an Old Tarr, and then one other bottle that I did curate was a Bourbon Deluxe. So back in the before Prohibition, and even during Prohibition, Bourbon Deluxe was a part of the RD1. It does have a William Tarr Distillery on the label. And so that Bourbon Deluxe is also I'm sure it's a different mash bill, but I did curate that just because it had the William Tarr Distillery on it from Louisville, Kentucky.
Sure. I mean, I've had a couple of, I think I've had 2 or 3 different Bourbon Deluxe releases, but they would have been later. They would have been maybe the '60s National Distillers era, or
right.
And I mean, they were fantastic whiskeys. Of course, not necessarily the same thing that would have been produced originally, but still, I think the youngest one was 4 years old. Maybe the latest one was 8 or so.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are, again, delicious.
Yeah. They awesome. Did something magical back in, if you try some of those old Dusties, from the 50s and 60s, there's something magical about what they were doing with distilling. And there's, for being like a 4, 5, 7, 8 year age stated bourbon or whiskey, they were so rich and developed in flavor in comparison to present day. I think you and I probably have sampled quite a bit of older whiskey, and I specifically go to those vintage shops just because they'll highlight them on their bar, and even if I pay $50 for a pour, you just can't get that. You can't get that kind of an aged product unless you go into a specialty shop. And it's Kentucky. Kentucky's the only state that I'm aware of that you're able to go into a shop, get a pour, and then buy a bottle of vintage spirit. Now, I could be wrong. I think maybe Washington, D.C. may have the same ability to get some of those vintage spirits. But we have 3 here in the state of Kentucky that if I'm in Lexington, Louisville, or Northern Kentucky, I'm going to go to one of those at some point and sit down and have a pour with them.
No, I'm totally with you. And yeah, I mean, DC, who knows? DC seems to have almost no laws on liquor, which is on one hand great, and it's great for shipping, but I don't know what's going on there. But no, I'm absolutely with you. That era, I mean, my favorite from that era are just anything Old Crow. That era.
Yes.
I brought it when I came down to Kentucky over Memorial Day weekend. I brought a Traveler unopened. In perfect condition. We finished it. It still had the price label on it, $4.35 for that. And I have my first stop when I was down there happened to be, I think it was Bardstown Bourbon Company, and they have their own kind of vault list, and I think it was like 120 a pour or something for that. And I was like, "Ooh, inflation's gone up." But no, the Old Crow and especially the Chessman are just my favorite pours from that era. I like other things as well, but National Distillers of that era just always pulls at my heartstrings.
Yeah, and they were doing something special. Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of something special that you guys are doing, as you said, number 3 in the pours is a little something extra.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had our supply chain guy. I said, "Hey, I need a bottle pulled straight from our tank that's holding, the remainder of our blend." And it was coming in at 118 proof, but when you hold things in a tanker, they're going to always start to lose proof. And so this one's probably around 116 proof now. I do have a bottle that I have sealed that is at that 118 proof, and I'll pull that one out for a special occasion. Maybe when you're around, I might pull it out and sample it with you.
It would be my honor. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. It's just a couple of proof points, which people
Yeah.
think, 114, 116, 118, it's not going to make a big difference, but it does. Mm.
Mm. So much more flavor. I mean, it.
Mm. Oh, yeah. It feels like that sugar coating you get in your mouth after
Mhm.
you eat a either a chocolate chip or a sugar cookie, and it's just begging
Yes.
you to drink some more water afterwards and
Hmm.
coating on there. That is so good.
Yeah, and that's that. That's that really that it's that viscous coating. It's going to stay there and hang around. And I love the description of a chocolate chip cookie because it's exactly what I get on the tongue. Is I'm just getting that residual, and it's just
Mm.
hanging around there. That sweet um, profile.
Mm.
It's very
A little
good.
bit of that, tip of the tongue pepper, side of the mouth oak dryness, but it's not woodiness at all. And I'm not a fan of super aged whiskeys by any means. Like my sweet spot is really
Mhm.
going up to about 12, 13 years at
Yeah.
most. And yeah, this just the oak is it's peppery, it's creamy, it adds to it creates a great mouthfeel, especially on the chew. But
Mhm.
at no point is it
Yeah.
woody.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
get, like you said, I like to refer to it more as barrel char because it definitely has a wood component, but there's more flavor to it than just a stringent drying of the mouth. It's not that at all.
Yeah, you're not chewing on the wood. It's
Hmm.
being drunk
Hmm.
nicely out of it.
So I'm lobbying now for my partners and our we have a national sales manager. He's our chief sales officer, and really we focus and rely on him to manage our consumer piece to our brand. And I'm like, we have to bottle, even if it's gift shop only. Let's bottle this at cask proof.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know what we'll call it, but there may be the opportunity to have to get a bottle of this through the gift shop. I'll make sure to send you a private message if we
Hmm.
do that, because I'm sure you're appreciating this like I am.
I this is the best kind of bottle because it makes me have two feelings at once. The first one is that I want one, which of course, as the producer, that's exactly what you want people to have as a first one. And my second one is I want other people to try it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the best thing that I can do. That's the best thing anyone can do for a brand is to share with a friend and say you should try this because it's damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mm.
and that really was our intention, was create something that people love and they want to tell their friends about it. And so I think we have achieved that. I think the 114 is there, but I think this one's so special. This one's going to be a very limited release. And we're balancing and juggling a lot of balls right now because we're in transition. We're getting ready to go into what the market calls O&D, and you may know what that means: October, November, December, and we make the majority of our profit during these months. So
Mm.
we can't introduce anything after getting into September. Is getting a little tough for us to introduce new products, and so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to introduce this for October, November, December, and if not, then this will probably be one that will go into our new custom bottle and have it be just a gift shop only release. But at any rate, I'm going to make sure at some point that we at least get a couple hundred bottles that's a gift shop only.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Yeah, that date of September 2nd. Well, now that when this goes live, it will have passed, but that date of September 2nd is coming up, and that's the start of the hunt at the end of the year. Uh, I don't even really hunt anymore, to be honest. Like I try. I'll and I know
Hmm.
that through friends and through bars, I'll get to try like the BTAC. I don't generally try the Pappy line. It's not my thing. I enjoy weeded bourbons. It's just
Hmm.
there are other people who are going to appreciate it more. Like with the BTACs,
Yeah.
again, profound. I go for the Stag, the
Yeah.
Weller, and the Handy. The Eagle Rare and the Saz, I don't enjoy because it's over oaked and too much
Hmm.
water for me. So I'm like, I'll let other people
Yeah.
have that, but
Yeah.
I'll let other people hunt, try from their largesse, and then other than that, stick with just trying new things. I've got, you know, you were very generous with samples. People are being very generous with samples when they come onto the podcast, and that is more than sustaining me for anything that I would ever need to hunt for. So I am good. I am good with not
Well,
hunting, but
my collection is so vast. You see behind me, this is in my kitchen, and I've got a floor to ceiling bar, and I can't even put all my bottles on this bar display. I've got over 500 bottles, and obviously I have a whole lot of William Tarr, but I'm more of a barrel pick guy. I
mhm.
prefer to I know Chris with Kroger. He's their buyer. He's their barrel pick. So I know if he's picking out a barrel and it's a Four Roses barrel proof, I'm getting that. I love like Justin's House of Bourbon here in Lexington and Louisville. They have really good palates. They know what they're doing when they're picking. So I typically will go with a store that knows what they're doing. Their flavor profiles are very similar to mine. And the other thing is I'm a member right now of about 9 different bourbon clubs in the state of Kentucky. And
Mhm.
bourbon clubs, we buy barrels. We buy barrels, and so I'm fortunate to be able to go and do these barrel picks. And if I find a barrel that I'm doing a pick on with a club, and they don't pick the barrel I like, I'll ask the supplier, hey, can I buy another barrel? And I've been fortunate to be able to get a barrel or two in my barrel picks because there's no shortage of people that are going to buy a bottle of a pick that you choose. So
Mhm.
we're lucky in Kentucky to be able to do that. I think we kind of overlook it, and it's kind of commonplace, but less than 1% of the population have done a barrel pick.
Yeah, I mean, I my dream for this podcast and for Patreon and supporters and the Whiskey Ringers group is to get to a point where we can do barrel picks because I agree with you that some of the best whiskey out there is in the picks. It's in those single barrels that are just gold. Um,
Mm.
and I'm also glad to hear that your number was higher than mine because that would have just been really embarrassing for both of us, I think. Um, but as I like to say, you guys, you have more room down there in Kentucky. I'm in New York City. I don't have any. I have enough bottles, let's say, and not enough room for them. Uh,
Yeah, and just logistically getting it from here to there.
oh God, oh God, it's I can't move. I can't move.
Yeah.
Um, and you also bring up something that I've mentioned before in the podcast and on the Patreon only under the influencer, where finding those people with whom your palate aligns is so important
Hmm.
for picks like that. Like I've got my guys up here who
Yeah.
the exact same thing. I know if they pick a bottle and if it's a brand that I like, I'm gonna like that. And even if it's one I don't like, I'll still try it because maybe they got something that's
Yeah.
so off profile that I really like it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's incredibly important. What's been your if you can say it, what's been your favorite pick that a group declined, but you decided to get a barrel anyway?
It was an Elijah Craig barrel proof pick, and it was with the Bourbon Capital Guild out of Bardstown, Kentucky. And we're a new club. We've only been around for right at a year. And if you can imagine being in a bourbon club that is in Bardstown, we've got Steve Nally. We've got all of master distillers. They get a membership to the Bourbon Club, and kind of selfish on our part because we're wanting them to come in. We've done barrel picks with Jim Beam. with Bardstown Bourbon Company, with Lex Row, with Heaven Hill. So all the big distilleries there, we've done barrel picks with, and so it's kind of selfish that I'm loving it because I'm a fan. I'm a bourbon fan. Even though I've got a brand, and this is what I love about the bourbon industry is we're all friendly. When we get together, we're bringing our special bottles. It's not uncommon for Stephen Beam and Stephen Fonte to come together. We'll have breakfast together. We'll smoke a cigar on their patio and drink some of their very best barrel picks. But that's really what I love about this industry is that you never see a contest where we're pitting our distillate against someone else's. You might see cocktail competitions, but it's not the brand that's doing that. It's either the clubs or a restaurant that are doing that, and I love that. We're very supportive of each other. The Kentucky Distillers Association has done such a wonderful job in lobbying on our behalf, and we had some very favorable legislation get passed this year in House Bill 500 that now allows us to go to fairs and festivals and festival markets and sell bottles and sell cocktails. As a craft brand, how important is that to me? Is that I get to sell bottles and make revenue from a MSRP standpoint rather than putting it through distribution. It's all important, but at the end of the day, for a new brand making the most amount of money, because we're still building a brand. We're getting ready to move into Indiana and Florida, but right now we're just only in Kentucky.
No, I again 100% agree. So calling back to a couple of guests now, David Mandel was on recently, and he mentioned House Bill 500, and that was, I hadn't even heard of it outside of Kentucky, and then I looked into it. I think most people were focused on the our barrel pick is going to go away issue that was later solved, but arguably I think House Bill 500 was the more important one. Because no one seriously believed that barrel picks were going away. It's too much of a drive. It's too much of there are too many benefits to it. So I don't think anyone seriously thought it was going to go away. But the ability to sell at a festival, like as you said, you can bring bottles to the KBF now, and sell whatever you would sell in several weeks, let's say, over a series of days, because you've got eyes on the brand, you've got you in front there, and in the same way, the other thing I wanted to mention was Stephen Fonte, also a recent guest. He was episode 50 actually, so a special guest on that one, and he's he's like you, he's just he's still a fan, and I appreciate everyone who comes on the show. They've all got their own history, and I think you're the former nurse that's come on, but everyone's got their own history. I mean, Stephen was a tea sommelier, so tomato on this one, but everyone's got their own background, their own likes, dislikes, and things. Some people can be a little jaded on certain points of the industry, or be on the other side just so hyper focused on growing their brand, perhaps rightly so, that any other brand is like, no, can't talk about them. It's like, this is all I drink right now. And I just wanted to point that out, because I appreciate when someone who, like, you could have come on here and said, like, we're just going to talk William Tarr, we're just going to talk RD1. But in talking about the groups that you're involved in, the palates that align with yours, the things that you drink when you're not drinking your own product, I think gives a better representation and a better profile on you and on the brand than just talking about the brand would do. So I just wanted to
appreciate that. Yeah, and it's authentic. I mean, you could just put up like you said, you could just throw up there and say, look, I'm just gonna only talk about my brand, but I'm a fan. And being a fan really changes the game. Because it allows me to interact in a very open and authentic way to other brands, and be a fanboy. I mean, the first time that I went to a Bourbon Society event, here's Jimmy Russell that's there signing bottles. So I had Jimmy sign a Wild Turkey 101 bottle, And he's like, 101. He's like, interesting. You brought that one. He said, now you're going to drink this, right? And he will not sign a bottle unless you tell him, yes, Jimmy, I'm going to drink that bottle. And I did drink it. And I have it chromed, so now it's a piece of artwork that has Jimmy Russell, a legend in the bourbon world, on my mantle.
I mean, that's awesome. I missed Jimmy by one day while I was there. Apparently, he likes to stop in on Sundays. I was there on, I think, Friday. So he likes to go in there after church because, I mean, that makes complete sense for someone.
Makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense. But just to finish off that kind of idea, I'm just looking at behind you, and this is an audio only podcast, so we got to describe things. But just behind you, on your home bar, your kitchen bar, which looks like a bar because it's beautiful. It's got the pipes and all that. I mean, off your right shoulder, you've got the maker's picks. You've got Four Roses. You've got Pinhook. A Penelope or two, Wilderness Trail. Of course, plenty of William Tarr, as should be.
Yeah.
But also, Booker's, the Heaven Hill White Label, Knob Creek's, Buffalo Trace picks, Weller's, So even a couple Blantons up there. So you really are, and Michter's, of course, behind you as well. So this really is, you drink the field and you try the field.
Yes.
And to me, someone who does that and talks about it,
market research.
Exactly. Good way to put it. Market research. I wish I could write that off like the businesses could, but I think I got to get an LLC for that. All right. Shall we go into number 4?
Yes. Okay. So number 4, this is a Kentucky straight bourbon. It is the mash bill is 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. This is at barrel proof. It's 126 proof.
The Whiskey Ring Podcast is proudly sponsored by Impex Beverages. Impex imports premium and rare whiskey, gin, rum, mezcals, liqueurs, and cordials from all over the world, from Scotland to Japan to Israel, Belgium, and Wales. Whether it's Kilchoman, Penderyn, Portiskeag, Glenallachie, Ohishi, Fukano, M&H, Ardnamurchan, Black Tot, and more, there's guaranteed to be something in the Impex portfolio you'll love. Impex also oversees some of the most prestigious independent bottlers in the game, including Single Malts of Scotland, Single Cask Nation, Adelphi Selection, and its own Impex collection. Take a look at their site, impexbev.com, or reach out if you're curious about their offerings. I'm proud to have many of their bottles on my shelves and love sharing them with friends whenever I can. Thank you to Sam and to the team for joining the Whiskey Ring Podcast as guest and sponsor. And now, a word from our newest sponsor. The most exclusive whiskey in the world can't be bought in a store. Born in Edinburgh, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society is the world's largest whiskey club, with over 30,000 members worldwide. They bottle each cask of whiskey as is. No diluting, no artificial coloring, or chill filtration. With new whiskeys released every week, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society offers the opportunity to taste spirits straight from the cask. I've been a member for over 2 years now, and I've loved the chance to explore my favorite distilleries with truly unique offerings, in particular from distilleries 4 and 53, and discovering new single malts not available anywhere else. Not a Scotch fan? No problem. The Scotch Malt Whisky Society releases 20-plus bottles each month to its members, including, yes, Scotch, but also including gin, bourbon, rum, and more. In fact, my favorite recent bottling was a corn whiskey from the largest family-owned distillery in the U.S., aged 11 years in New Oak and bottled at cask strength. This is a bottling that people have clamored for years, and it was only available to Scotch Malt Whisky Society members. If you're interested in joining, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society has graciously offered a discount to listeners of this podcast. Use code WRP, short for Whiskey Ring Podcast, at checkout for 20% off an annual membership at smwsa.com. That stands for Scotch Malt Whisky Society of America. I will also be putting the link and code in my bio and show notes for this and upcoming episodes. Thank you to the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society for joining the Whiskey Ring podcast as our newest sponsor. And please visit smwsa.com with code WRP for 20% off your annual membership. That's interesting. There's like a unsalted pretzel crust on there. Toasty. Of course, I mean, different bash bill than the first three, so can't expect it to be totally the same. But
right,
no proof on the nose.
It doesn't. Yeah, it does not nose like a 126 proof.
Mm-mm.
I do get a lot of the bold, spicy notes on the nose. I get a little campfire toast.
Like you were saying before, the barrel char, that kind of chariness as opposed to an overt smokiness or something like that. But doesn't drink like a 126 either.
It doesn't. I mean, you can see, unfortunately, this audio only, but you can see the very thick legs, which is non-chill filtered. It's straight from the barrel, and it is absolutely very thick and viscous and coating. I am getting some of the I would call it maybe a little bit of sweetness and maybe a toasted marshmallow for me on the palate.
Yep, you can definitely see that. And again, it lingers. The long finish. That is good. I'm going back for more.
You know how many aromas the nose can pick up on? It's part of being a nurse. I throw in a few of the anatomy and physiology.
No, it's fine. I just have to ask, because that depends. Are we talking on a real level or on a Woodford Reserve like palate wheel? Sorry, couldn't resist.
On a real level. So and what it does is this demonstrates how important your nose is in sampling and tasting. The mouth can pick up on sweet, sour, spicy, bitter, or umami. It can perceive hot and cold and chemical. So we're putting a chemical in our mouth here. So 7 distinct different things is what the mouth can pick up on, but the nose can pick up on 1 trillion different aromas. And so the importance of the nose, the importance of, how Booker tells, do the Kentucky Chew, because that Kentucky Chew is creating aromas that are going up into your nose. And so it's super important that you think of the mouth as the laboratory and the nose as the chimney. So as you're creating those aromas, you're wanting to get that retronasal appreciation of those ethanol alcohol aromas so that you can pick up on those different flavors. And we all experience flavor differently because flavors are created from our memory. So my memory of eating an orange is going to be different than yours. If I ask you, what does a grape taste like? You'll tell me, well, there's a textural component there. It can be kind of crunchy, but it may be sweet. It may be sour, depending on the type of grape you're having. But you can't describe, you can't put into words what that tastes like. And so we need our memories. We need those memories to be able to describe flavors. And that's why, you mentioned the flavor wheel. The flavor wheel is so nice to be able to look at as you're, doing sampling to kind of help you express what you're tasting. But we all taste things differently. That's the beauty of doing samples. Nobody can tell you what it tastes like. Now, you said earlier, the power of suggestion is going to make you, oh yeah, I get orange citrus. I get that dried cherry on the finish. The power of suggestion is really big, but if you're doing blind tastings, that's the best way to educate your palate.
Oh yeah, and another fun exercise is to, especially if you're using a tulip shaped glass, either a Glen or something like that, to try to do the first sip with I mean you know this. I'm not talking to you on this one. It's more for the audience trying at home, but sip it at first with pinching your nostrils closed. So basically you can't smell it, it's just through your mouth. You'll get some flavor in there. And then do another sip with your nose wide open and just see what happens. Let's put it that way. See what happens. But yeah, physiologically, the nose and your sense of smell, when you look, again, speaking of the choir, but if you look at a diagram of the brain, the olfactory bulb goes farther, deeper into the brainstem, closer to the primal areas of the brain. It's the strongest sense that we have. It's of the 5 major ones. It's the most primal. It's the most important one. Being able to smell if something is good or bad before you taste it or ingest it in any way is how a lot of us survive on a daily basis and survive through evolution. So it really is, and the nose is, I think, unequivocally is almost more important in tasting than the mouth is.
Yeah,
you get more out of the nose than the mouth.
Yeah, totally agree.
This is a dangerous one because this sips at. I mean, I know I'm a proof fan, so my numbers are a little off on this one, but I would put this more towards like even maybe 110, 105.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, it just goes down so easy.
Yeah, very little burn. Again, a lot of the toasted notes start coming out stronger and stronger as it goes along. As you sip a little more viscous. So, of course, being a different mash bill than the first 3, what led you to using a different bourbon mash bill in this product as opposed to the bourbon mash bill that you had as part of the first 3?
Well, I think if you look at where bourbon has gone really just over the last 2.5 years, so let's kind of look at COVID and look at what we were able to get in early 2000, maybe 2019. There were aged barrels on the market, so as we're looking out and trying to get enough product to be able to release, we were able to get 8-year and 7-year product and put together a blend that had a wonderful flavor profile that we were proud enough to release. We have more barrels in inventory than we ever have had in the state of Kentucky. There's almost just a little under or right at 12 million barrels in storage, but those barrels are young. We've been consuming so much, over the last 2.5 years that there's no aged stock anywhere. People are buying up the aged stock. And so as we're looking, we had to develop a liquid strategy because we do plan. We're not looking to exit. We're not looking to have some big brand come in and acquire us and sell out. We're having a lot of fun doing this, and we're building the brand to continue to grow it. And so what we were looking for is what could we find in a mash bill that was a good flavor. It was a Kentucky product. We're not looking to 95% of all the craft brands are sourcing from Ross and Squibb. It now used to be MGP, but they changed their name. We don't want to. If we're reviving Lexington, Kentucky's first federal registered distillery, it almost seems inauthentic to not get a Kentucky mash bill. And so we found enough barrels to be able to source some aged product. So we're aging product now into 5, 6, 7 years, but we're also contract distilling that same mash bill. So we're laying down new make of that same mash bill. We're actually building a production distillery in Ohio County in Western Kentucky. It'll be done by mid-year next year, and it will have 49,000 barrel capacity per year. So we're looking to backfill where we're contract distilling now. with our production distillery that's currently under construction.
I mean, that's 49,000 barrels. It sounds like such a huge number. I know compared to like some of the heritage brands, it's a drop in the bucket for them, but at the same time, it's no small potatoes either.
Yeah. Yeah, for a
Wow.
small brand like us, that's huge. It's a big number. But like you said, we're nowhere near the Heaven Hill and the Jim Beam, and I think that we're really happy with where we are. We can be in charge of making our own mash bill, and then as we're trying to figure out the resurrected mash bill with the old Tarr that we've got in our inventory, we'll be able to start laying that down, and that's going to be at least a minimum 4 years. We're not going to come out with a product that's young. We're not going to come out just to try to make money, a product that isn't ready. So it'll be ready when the barrel says it's ready, not when our accountant and our chief financial officer says it's going to be ready. We have to put out a great product that the customers are going to say, yep, this is good. You definitely want to buy one yourself. So that really, that quality piece is very important. It's important to everybody, because there's nothing worse to a brand than to release a young product that may need another year, 2, 3 in the barrel, and releasing it early.
Yeah, it's hard to overcome that initial reputation, and of course, looking at it from the business side, it's understandable because a lot of places, especially if they decide not to do a vodka or a gin or something like that, or secure other financial backing, they need some kind of money to just keep the lights on while the stuff ages. Some are able to, and some are kind of forced to put out that younger product. And I'm giving the benefit of the doubt and saying that those people are not intentionally putting out too young product. That's, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt there, but you're obviously not in that position. You can wait the 4 years. You can wait for the production facility to go. And, this liquid strategy, including what you mentioned earlier, being nationwide within 5 years, is, I think it's a testament to the fact that you guys aren't going anywhere. You've got the plan. It doesn't sound like a lot of ifs are there. It sounds like a when kind of structure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the other things, one of the big driving forces when I had met with and founded the company with our current partners, is that we really wanted to help drive this $9 billion a year tourism industry to Lexington. There's a lot of love given to Bardstown, a lot of love given to Louisville and Frankfort and Northern Kentucky. And Lexington's just kind of like an afterthought. Lexington's kind of like, we're going to fly into Lexington. We might visit James Pepper, which is a great resurrected vintage brand. We might visit Town Branch or Bluegrass Distillers, but that's kind of like an afterthought. We want to have consumers that are coming to the Bourbon Trail. We would like for you either start or finish your tour in Lexington, and let's try to figure out some kind of a different urban Bourbon Trail or a different beeline that combines the best of what Lexington has to offer. We got great restaurateurs in Weta Michael. We've got some wonderful event venues. Rupp Arena just got renovated, and now is a huge event venue location. So we really do want to help establish some kind of a tourism component to the Bourbon Trail in Lexington. And so that's really part of our goal is, and our business model when it was first built before COVID was that, we're going to really focus on the brand destination. We're going to focus on having people come in. Typically a person that is going on the Bourbon Trail spends anywhere from $400 to $1,200 while they're here. So it would be really nice to have a brand destination where you're driving in a lot of that bourbon tourism. And we believe that that's going to recover. We believe that, as we make plans to build from the ground up, a brand destination here in Lexington, that it's going to be a first-class location. that will combine some of the wonderful things that when you look at log still and what they're doing out there. I mean, they're
Mhm.
really creating the napification of the bourbon trail.
Mhm.
It's an experiential component. They're combining the culinary piece along with the entertainment piece. And,
Mhm.
so I think that's really that next step. You see Bardstown Bourbon Company doing that. You see Heaven Hill, they're bringing in the culinary piece.
Mhm.
And so I believe that's just going to elevate us all as people want to continue to come to Kentucky and see what is with Kentucky bourbon.
No, I agree. I completely agree. It's a deserving location. I mean, the Bardstowns, the Louisvilles, they've got their own, like they've got it kind of made in the bag right now. The stuff is
Mhm.
there, and yeah, Lexington. I mean, there's clearly attraction there because you've got other things like the Preakness, like horse. It's the center of the horse world, if you will. Certainly, the
Yeah,
U.S. horse
yeah,
landscape. But there is a lot more that it has to give, and in addition to the Bardstown Bourbon having the culinary ones you just mentioned, I also want to do a plug now for Blue Door Barbecue, which was so damn good.
world famous. That place is
Oh,
just crazy good.
that was so good. But the funniest thing though, because when I was there, I stayed in Lexington and we kind of branched out from there to each of the destinations, and we stayed there and we I guess we didn't get lost, but we forgot to do something along the way. It was like, oh, we'd have to go back across town. And I said, oh, well, that sounds like a lot. Like, how much would it be to go back across town? He's like, oh, it's about, that'd be about like 7, 8 minutes. And I was like, you're freaking kidding me. Like 7, 8 minutes. It takes that long for me to wait for a bus to arrive if I'm going somewhere like across town. Look, I know I'm jaded. I know I'm from New York City. Like I've got my own standards on that. But for 6 minutes, I'll go back to the Lexington location for Justin's House of Bourbon. I'll go back to Blue Door. I'll go back to the other liquor barn or the other Total Wine because we went to the
Hmm.
wrong one or the right one. Like,
Yeah.
no, I would. I know when I'm going there in August, I'm staying in Louisville and Bardstown, but I'll be no, I'll be going all over. So again, I will definitely be coming down to you, and I'll make sure to share a meal. I popped over to where you are, so we should mention before we get to the last pour where uh, the kind of formal gift shop is for William Tarr and RD1,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, you can. I'll let you describe it a little more, but it's surrounded by. It's got the James Pepper plant, wonderful ice cream shop, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment.
Crank and boom.
There you go, Crank and Boom, with the alcoholic ice cream, and damn, it's so good. Uh, it's got a pizza place, it's outdoor venue with
Hmm.
space for musical acts, but there's more to it than that. So I'll let you
Yeah.
go into that.
Yeah, so it's called the Lexington Distillery District, and it's on Manchester Street. So if you're downtown where Rupp Arena is, and you go out Manchester Street, it's no more than 3/4 of a mile due west, and it's called. So the Lexington Distillery District is really the campus of the old Pepper Distillery, and so James Pepper revised a vintage brand coexisted with the Ashland Distillery back in the day in the 1860s and 1870s. And so they revised that brand. And you talk about the pizza place, Goodfellas Pizza. It's
Mhm.
Goodfellas Distillery. And so they're actually in a part of the pepper where the grains were milled. And so you still see that big silo that's right there where the Goodfellas Pizzeria is, and they probably have the second most impressive bourbon bar in Lexington. The first one being Bluegrass Tavern, which is
Mhm.
downtown. Bluegrass Tavern has probably one of the biggest whiskey bars in this region, if not close to the U.S. Huge whiskey and bourbon collection. But so the pizzeria, Goodfellas Pizzeria, is there, and then a Barrel House Distillery is the first distillery that was in the distillery district. They've been around for, gosh, I want to say 12, 13 years now. And then you've got a couple of breweries that are located, actually three breweries. And our gift shop is in the Pepper Rick House. So this Rick House is a 5-story Pepper Rick House. It was built in the late 1930s, early 1940s, and it's on the back side of that Rick House. And so right on Manchester Street, we have our brand destination there, and you can come in. We're open 7 days a week right now. You can come in and experience a historic type tour. And true to form, I train all of our brand ambassadors and our gift shop workers how to be a bourbon steward. What's the foundational knowledge of what it means to be a bourbon? And we have a great opportunity. You can drink straight from the barrel. We've got about 20-30 barrels in our inventory there, so you can drink straight from the barrel. You can we're hoping at some point here over the next several months to be able to have a bottling line, so you can create your perfect blend of different barrels that we've got there. We want to make unique experiences. We've already done our first and second barrel pick. One was with Liquor Barn, and those releases will be coming up here in late August. And then the first club that's done a barrel pick is the Lexington Bourbon Society, and that's a club that's near and dear to my heart because that's the one that I joined first and was on the board. So I gave the nod to them to be able to do that first barrel pick. And so we're hopeful that we'll do about 30 barrel picks by the end of the year.
It's incredible. And I love that idea of bottle your own. I love any kind of bottle your own experience. I did 3 while I was down the first time, and I would do them all again. All right, so I know we are running short on time, so I'm going to crack number 5. Oh, also, if I'm going to put on my elitist hat for a second, because I have to. Goodfellas Pizza, New York approved. That was incredible pizza. So
for you to say that is a bold statement, because here we are in lonely Lexington, Kentucky, and you're comparing us to an iconic pizza. So I agree with you. I think that they do wonderful things over there.
No, I know. I got strong preferences on pizza. Like get the F away with the pineapple and the ham. Go away. But if you got a good if you've got a good pizza, and before we finally ordered like 6 pies, which were gigantic, by the way, like 22-inch pies. We ordered a couple of them, and they were like, "Trust me, dude, you're gonna like this. This can be as good as New York." And I was like, "All right, I'm holding judgment."
Mm-hmm.
That was better than easily most of the pizza around me right now. And
oh my goodness,
it was damn good. So Goodfellas, I'm not asking for a sponsorship, but I'll take a gift card when I go down there. It was that
good. So do you do the fold method where, this huge slice, you're folding it over onto itself as you're eating? Is that the technique?
So normally, no, I'm not usually a fold guy. But the slice was just so damn big that I had to. I'm used to an 18-inch pizza or maybe a 16-inch, which again, it's one of those things that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add 4 inches to the diameter or something, and then to the circumference, that is a big ass pizza. It's 2 feet wide.
It's huge. Yeah. You should see, carrying those boxes out. I mean, you can't, gracefully do it.
No, you're trying to get through the doorway and shimmy your way through and sliding. No, but it was amazing. I couldn't eat more than one full slice. So, but it was so good.
Totally fills you up. Yeah. Well, and to give a nod to them, they do some damn good barrel picks.
That's just out of my mind to even hear that like a pizza shop is doing barrel picks. It's I don't know. That's crazy, and yet I really want to try their barrel picks now.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we got with number 5 here?
So number 5, it's the same mash bill. So 70 corn, 21 rye, 9 malted barley. This is a finished product, and it's a French oak finished. If you compare the nose between the two, I get a lot of that very sweet French oak on the nose.
Definitely, it's got a little more pepper, but also some perfume on there.
Mm-hmm.
A little more herbaceousness than an American oak.
Yeah, a lot more character.
Oh, that's good.
Isn't that
Mm.
delicious?
Is that at about the same proof?
126. Yeah,
126.
yeah.
See, I'd say this drinks closer to proof. Also,
Hmm.
very easily.
Mm.
It drinks very easily, closer to proof. But wow, the flavor on that is incredible.
I mean, the finish is so much more bolder, hangs around. Um, I mean, I get some of the sweetness of that French oak, but like you said, it highlights the rye. It kind of opens up that rye
It
a little
does.
bit more. So I'm getting a lot more of that bold spiciness
Mm.
and richer, in color. If you compare the two, this one's definitely got a whole lot more um, color in the
Yeah, it's
appearance.
like got some dark, like a Manuka honey on there. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good. I haven't had a bad pour of these five. These
Mm,
all
thank you.
not even a simply just solid. Like these are all very good to great to excellent, I would say. And people know I don't hold back. Like if something's truly terrible, I will hold it back on the podcast and I'll tell someone offline. But if I simply don't like something, like I think 2 or 3 episodes before you, yours will be one with Raj Sabarwal, and he's
Okay.
big importer. So he sent me a couple things to try that were from all over Ireland, Amrit from India, and a couple of like super peated whiskeys. And it took me a long time to get along with Pete and his brother Repeat, but it took me a long time to get along with to get the smoke and the peatiness are in there, and I can appreciate it. But between the two peated pours that he sent me, I said, "Look, I'm being very honest. I enjoyed the first one, but the second one was much better in my opinion. It was just more balanced. It was stronger.
Mm,
It
yeah.
wasn't yeah, like the other one was just kind of lacking. So I'm honest in that case where if it's above a level where we can have a conversation, I'll be honest. But these are all not a bad one in the bunch, and just
Yeah. I appreciate that.
incredibly impressive. It's incredibly impressive. You guys are just 2+ years old, 2.5 years old. Um, and you're sourcing the right stuff. You're going to be producing the right stuff. I mean, it's really incredible. And again, you got someone at the head here who's pounded the pavement as hard as anyone out there, which you got to appreciate and you got to respect.
Well, I do appreciate that. I have a lot of my friends that say, man, I see you in Louisville, and then you're heading over to Bardstown, and but we're fortunate. We have a great team, and so now it's more about just continuing to educate our current team that we've got and coach them up and have them be able to represent the brand consistently, whether you're in Eastern or Western Kentucky. And we've got to get this team ready to be self-sustaining because we're moving on. So
Mhm.
Adam Mendoza, our national sales manager, and we're going to be going to Indiana in the 6 to 8 weeks. So we're going to be gone, and they're going to have to hold down the backyard while we're gone. And we have very strong confidence that we've got that team in place that's going to be able to do it.
That's absolutely what we want to hear. So we are getting towards the top of the time, and I want to have a couple minutes to talk to you offline for a second. Have we missed anything that we should definitely talk about?
Well, we covered the liquid strategy, which I wanted to. We covered the production distillery, which I wanted to. I think that if I could just give a plug for our other majority owners, Mike Tedderton and Marcia Couch, they came into this brand and what they bring in leadership and what they bring in investment has us so secure that we're not looking to go out and get more investment. What we're looking to do is to execute a plan and a strategy based on their leadership as the CEO and the CFO. And so I have nothing but wonderful things to say about them and the team that we've got assembled. I think we got a first class team. And we have bourbon consultants that are continuing to help us with our supply chain, with our liquid strategy, with our, the finance piece. You can't overlook, most craft brands fail because they don't have enough liquid. And we've made sure that we've secured that. And so we're in a very good place. And, just great, wonderful working with people that are as passionate as I am about bringing this product to market. And we're having a lot of fun too. It can be hard work, and we recognize there's times where we have to take a step back and take a break. But I wouldn't change anything at this point.
Awesome, I love it. Well, Barry, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for being generous with your time, with some samples here of stuff that I want to get a bottle of all of these. I mean, I'll have to limit myself, but I want to get a bottle of all of them. But we'll talk offline about that, of course. Just to close out, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find us on Facebook. We finally got our Facebook name changed from William Tarr Distillery to now it's all RD1 Spirits. So on Facebook, RD1 Spirits. On Instagram, we're RD1 Spirits. And then our website is rd1spirits.com. You can find me, Barry Brinegar, on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. And I love meeting people, and so you can find me in Lexington, Kentucky too.
And I certainly will be. All right, Barry, thanks so much. Hang on for me for a second after we finish recording.
Okay.
It's been another episode of the Whiskey Ring Podcast. You know where to follow us. Take a look at our Patreon page for new benefits, a new Patreon only show. I'll see you next week.